What if the soldiers of North Korea, known for their unwavering loyalty, are now caught in a battle they can't win, deployed to aid Russian forces in the ongoing war? These troops are facing unimaginable hardships, but what exactly is happening to them on the front lines? Are they being sacrificed for a cause they never fully understood? Or is there something even darker at play in this deadly alliance? In this video, we'll explore the devastating reality facing North Korean soldiers in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, where thousands are reported to be facing brutal conditions, with some resorting to extreme measures just to survive. Could these soldiers be the first victims of a much larger geopolitical game? Let's dive into the shocking details and uncover the truth behind these military deployments. Recent battlefield reports reveal disturbing patterns of violence among North Korean forces fighting alongside Russian troops in Ukraine. Evidence shows the systematic elimination of wounded soldiers by their comrades, marking an unprecedented crisis in military conduct. Ukrainian intelligence services have documented multiple instances where North Korean soldiers have taken extreme measures to avoid capture. Moreover, several wounded North Korean soldiers were found deceased under suspicious circumstances, with evidence suggesting they were eliminated by their forces. The situation has become so severe that Ukrainian forces report difficulty in capturing North Korean soldiers alive, as their compatriots often execute wounded comrades. Ukrainian military personnel have shared detailed and harrowing first-hand accounts of the North Korean soldiers deployed on the front lines. According to a captured Russian soldier, Vidya Chubrevich, North Korean troops often operate independently, showing little to no coordination with Russian forces. Ukrainian forces have corroborated these claims, noting that North Korean soldiers tend to move in tightly knit groups of 5 to 10 men, avoiding any interaction with Russian troops in their vicinity. Their behavior on the battlefield has been described as reckless, with reports indicating that they often act without regard for tactical strategies, making them easy targets for Ukrainian drone strikes. The situation for these soldiers has grown even more dire, with reports suggesting that North Korean forces are being subjected to what can only be described as meat grinder tactics, particularly in operations to clear minefields. Soldiers are ordered to march in single file, spaced just 3 to 4 meters apart, with medics trailing behind to collect the fallen. This approach, while intended to clear the path, has resulted in catastrophic casualties. Preliminary reports indicate that more than 3,000 North Korean soldiers have either been killed or wounded in the Kursk region alone, underscoring the brutal and unsustainable nature of their deployment. The devastating losses paint a grim picture of the human cost of this war for those caught in the crossfire. The integration of North Korean forces into Russian military operations reveals significant structural challenges that undermine battlefield effectiveness. Intelligence reports confirm approximately 11,000 to 12,000 North Korean troops operating in Russia's Kursk Oblast, including 500 officers and 3 generals. The command structure presents a complex challenge as North Korean military culture differs substantially from Russian operational methods. Although North Korean troops wear Russian uniforms and carry fake military IDs, their integration into Russian units remains problematic. The deployment was executed hastily, with minimal preparation time for proper integration into Russian military structures. One of the most significant obstacles faced by the North Korean troops deployed alongside Russian forces is the language barrier. Despite the efforts made by the Russian military to bridge this gap, these measures have proven far from sufficient, especially in the high-stress environment of combat. To tackle the communication challenge, the Russian forces have implemented several strategies, such as assigning 1 Korean language translator for every 30 North Korean soldiers. Additionally, the North Korean troops receive basic training in around 100 essential Russian military terms, and each North Korean unit is accompanied by 3 Russian personnel to aid in communication and coordination. However, these attempts to establish a functional communication system have fallen short. In combat, the need for precise, real-time communication is paramount, and the rudimentary language training offered to North Korean soldiers simply doesn't provide the level of fluency required to operate effectively on the battlefield. The result has been disastrous, with some operational failures, including documented instances of friendly fire, where Russian forces mistakenly targeted their troops due to misunderstandings and miscommunications with their North Korean counterparts. This communication breakdown has not only jeopardized the safety of the soldiers involved, but has also significantly hindered the efficiency and effectiveness of joint military operations, further complicating an already precarious situation for all parties involved. The operational structure has become increasingly complicated due to several factors. Undoubtedly, the most concerning aspect is the breakdown in coordination between Russian and North Korean units. According to reports from the Pentagon, Russian forces are currently providing training to North Korean troops in a range of essential combat operations. This training includes instruction in infantry tactics, unmanned aerial vehicle operations, artillery procedures, and trench-clearing techniques. By imparting these critical skills, Russia aims to enhance the effectiveness of the North Korean military as they support Russian forces on the front lines. Although the success and outcomes of this training remain uncertain, Ukrainian intelligence intercepts reveal Russian soldiers expressing frustration and disbelief over command arrangements. The situation is further complicated by cultural differences, as North Korean military doctrine emphasizes rigid hierarchy and absolute obedience, contrasting with Russian operational flexibility. The impact of these command structure issues manifests in battlefield performance. Intelligence reports indicate that North Korean units have suffered significant casualties, partially attributed to poor coordination and communication failures. Although Russian forces provide reconnaissance and electronic warfare support, the language barrier continues to hamper effective battlefield coordination. Ukrainian forces have launched an intensive psychological warfare campaign targeting North Korean soldiers on the battlefield, marking a significant shift in combat tactics. The I Want to Live project specifically targets these troops through carefully crafted messages in Korean, demonstrating the complex psychological dimensions of this conflict. North Korean military doctrine instills a deep-seated fear of capture, teaching soldiers that becoming a prisoner of war brings extreme shame worse than death itself. The psychological pressure is intensified by the knowledge that their families back home face severe consequences if they surrender. Specifically, grieving families are forced to sign silence pledges about their loved ones' deaths. The psychological resilience of North Korean soldiers represents a fascinating and somewhat contradictory aspect of their training and deployment. These soldiers are specifically conditioned to endure significant physical pain and psychological stress, often undergoing harsh training methods that prepare them for extreme conditions. Their ability to withstand torture and suffering is a key component of their military indoctrination, making them seemingly impervious to many forms of psychological warfare that might break other troops. However, this tough exterior also presents challenges for those opposing them on the battlefield, particularly Ukrainian forces. In response to this, the Ukrainian military has adapted its tactics to counteract the psychological strength of North Korean soldiers. Recognizing the importance of psychological operations in warfare, Ukrainian forces have utilized loudspeakers to broadcast surrender messages, offering a psychological alternative to continued resistance. These messages often include offers of safety and assurances of proper treatment should the soldiers choose to lay down their weapons. In addition to the use of loudspeakers, Ukrainian forces have also dropped leaflets containing instructions in Korean, further aimed at appealing directly to the North Korean soldiers. These leaflets typically emphasize promises of shelter, medical care, and humane treatment, hoping to exploit any cracks in the psychological armor that North Korean soldiers are trained to wear. Additionally, Ukrainian forces have created videos that highlight these promises of better treatment, trying to present an alternative to the harsh reality that many of these soldiers face on the battlefield. Despite their intense resilience, the North Korean troops are not immune to these efforts, as psychological tactics evolve to meet the unique nature of the forces they are facing. Despite rigorous indoctrination, battlefield realities often challenge military training. Ukrainian intelligence reports indicate that North Korean soldiers face a critical dilemma: the choice between survival and loyalty. The overall psychological warfare campaign directed at North Korean soldiers aims to provide them with a series of reassurances designed to encourage surrender. These include clear instructions outlining safe surrender procedures and ensuring that soldiers understand how to avoid harm when laying down their weapons. Additionally, the campaign promises necessities such as food and shelter, offering relief from the dire conditions they may be facing on the front lines. Medical care is also guaranteed, providing a sense of hope for those who may be injured or in need of treatment. Furthermore, there are strong assurances of protection from reprisals, to ease fears of punishment or mistreatment if they choose to abandon the fight. The effectiveness of these psychological operations remains uncertain, specifically because North Korean troops lack access to mobile phones, and even Russian soldiers' devices are confiscated before encounters with North Korean units. Nonetheless, Ukrainian officials remain optimistic about their campaign's potential impact, noting that many North Korean troops might view their deployment as an opportunity to escape Kim's regime. The psychological impact extends beyond individual soldiers to affect unit cohesion and combat effectiveness. Military experts observe that while these troops demonstrate high physical endurance, their unfamiliarity with Russian systems and the language barrier significantly complicate their fighting capabilities. Eventually, this combination of psychological pressure and operational challenges has led to documented cases of extreme responses, including self-elimination to avoid capture. Shocking reports from the front lines reveal systematic self-elimination protocols among North Korean forces fighting in Ukraine. Intelligence sources confirm that these desperate measures stem from strict military doctrine and fear of capture consequences. Ukrainian forces have observed various methods used to conceal the involvement of North Korean troops in the conflict. One common tactic is the immediate elimination of wounded personnel, preventing any possibility of capture that might reveal their true identity. In addition, efforts are made to remove any identifying documents or insignia that could link the soldiers to North Korea. To further disguise their origins, false Russian identification papers are issued to these troops, enabling them to blend in with Russian forces. In some instances, Ukrainian forces have reported that the soldiers are being presented as coming from Russian regions, such as Tuva, in an attempt to mask their true national affiliation. The situation has become increasingly dire as North Korean troops face impossible missions. White House National Security Council spokesperson confirms that Russian and North Korean leaders view these soldiers as expendable, ordering them to conduct hopeless assaults against Ukrainian defenses. Likewise, battlefield reports indicate that North Korean units operate with minimal protection, leading to substantial losses. The severity of these measures reflects the desperate nature of North Korean military involvement. Military analysts observe that these troops serve as cannon fodder for nearly impossible missions. Otherwise, successful Ukrainian defensive positions have reported North Korean soldiers pushing attacks even when futile. Similarly, captured documents reveal disturbing tactics, including using soldiers as bait to draw in enemy drones. These desperate measures have resulted in significant casualties, with Ukrainian President Zelenskyy reporting that both Russian and North Korean leadership show no interest in preserving their troops' lives. Military observers note that this approach has led to an unprecedented crisis, with some units losing up to two-thirds of their fighting strength. The deployment of North Korean soldiers in Ukraine's conflict zone has triggered serious violations of international law, markedly escalating tensions in the global security landscape. The South Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs has confirmed that this military involvement violates multiple United Nations precedents and General Assembly resolutions. The deployment of North Korean troops in the ongoing conflict represents a significant breach of international law, specifically violating several critical provisions outlined in the UN Charter and various international sanctions. The presence of these soldiers fundamentally contravenes the UN's arms embargo, which has been in place since 2006, and it also violates the terms of UN Security Council Resolution 2270, which prohibits military cooperation with North Korea due to its ongoing violations of international norms. By engaging in direct military collaboration with Russian forces, this situation further exacerbates the breach of international sanctions designed to curb North Korea's involvement in any form of military activity with other nations. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has expressed grave concern, calling the involvement of North Korean troops as co-belligerents a very, very serious issue. His statement highlights the dangerous implications of this development, as it not only undermines global efforts to prevent the proliferation of military conflicts, but also risks escalating regional tensions into larger, more volatile confrontations that could have far-reaching consequences. This military cooperation between Russia and North Korea is not just a breach of international law, it has the potential to destabilize global peace, with far-reaching implications for security and diplomacy around the world. The treatment of captured North Korean soldiers has raised complex legal questions regarding prisoner of war status. The Security Service of Ukraine reports that 2 captured North Korean soldiers are being held under conditions aligned with international law. The prisoners captured in this conflict face a range of unique challenges. One of the primary difficulties they encounter is the communication barrier, which necessitates the use of Korean interpreters to facilitate any meaningful interaction. In addition to this, the absence of proper identification documents complicates their status and makes it harder to verify their identities. Furthermore, issues arise in confirming their legitimate military status, adding another layer of complexity to the handling and treatment of these prisoners. The Geneva Convention mandates that the questioning of prisoners must occur in a language they understand, with protection against public curiosity, primarily. These requirements ensure humane treatment regardless of the prisoner's origin or military affiliation. Ukrainian authorities have initiated comprehensive documentation of potential war crimes. The investigation focuses on Article 437 of the Criminal Code of Ukraine, which addresses planning, preparation, and waging of aggressive war. The Security Service of Ukraine, in collaboration with South Korean intelligence, has compiled significant evidence to support its findings. This evidence includes testimonies from captured soldiers, detailed documentation of military equipment used by the North Korean troops, and records of their conduct on the battlefield. These materials provide valuable insights into the involvement of North Korean forces and help substantiate the ongoing investigation into their participation in the conflict. The international community has expressed grave concerns about these developments. The UN Security Council emphasizes that receiving assistance from fully sanctioned North Korea represents a brazen violation of the UN Charter. This situation has prompted increased scrutiny from international observers and human rights organizations monitoring potential violations of established military codes and conventions. Ukrainian forces have successfully captured 2 North Korean soldiers in the Kursk region, offering unprecedented insights into North Korea's military involvement in the conflict. These captures, confirmed by South Korea's National Intelligence Service, represent the first North Korean prisoners of war to survive capture. The captured soldiers' backgrounds reveal striking details about North Korea's military deployment. The first soldier, a rifleman born in 2005, has served in the North Korean military since 2021. Throughout the interrogation, he disclosed that he believed he was being sent to Russia for training purposes. The second soldier, born in 1999, served as a scout sniper since 2016. The documentation status of these soldiers reveals intriguing discrepancies. One soldier was found carrying a Russian military ID, although it was issued under another person's name, raising questions about the authenticity of his identity. In contrast, a second soldier had no identification documents at all, further complicating efforts to verify his background and affiliation. Intelligence reports reveal that, before these recent captures, 18 North Korean soldiers had already deserted their positions. This mass defection occurred after the soldiers were left isolated in forested areas without the basic provisions necessary for survival, including food and water. Additionally, they were abandoned without clear operational instructions and left to fend for themselves, with no support from their Russian counterparts. These dire circumstances prompted several soldiers to make the difficult decision to flee, seeking to escape the harsh conditions they were enduring. Currently, military analysts suggest that the likelihood of further defections remains, a serious concern for those North Korean troops still deployed in the region. Unlike the soldiers who blindly follow orders, many of these troops are increasingly seeing their deployment as an opportunity to escape the oppressive control of the North Korean regime. Faced with the horrors of war and the lack of basic support, defection becomes an attractive alternative, with some troops viewing it as a potential means to gain freedom from the tightly controlled environment of their home country. This shift in perspective highlights the growing disillusionment among the soldiers, many of whom no longer see their mission as one of loyalty to their government, but as a potential way out of their dire situation. The Security Service of Ukraine has established thorough care protocols for the captured soldiers, ensuring they receive the necessary attention and treatment. Medical assessments of the prisoners revealed distinct injuries. One soldier had suffered facial wounds that required dental intervention, while the other sustained a leg fracture accompanied by an open wound. Upon their capture, both prisoners were given immediate medical assistance to address their injuries. In addition to providing prompt medical care, Ukrainian authorities have taken several measures to ensure the well-being of the prisoners. Korean language translators have been made available to facilitate communication, ensuring that the soldiers can effectively express their needs. Furthermore, they have received appropriate medical treatment for their injuries, in line with international humanitarian standards, to protect their rights. The prisoners are being afforded protection under international conventions, ensuring they are treated by established laws governing the treatment of prisoners of war. The treatment of these prisoners stands in stark contrast to reported Russian practices. Ukrainian President Zelenskyy emphasized that these soldiers receive better care compared to what Russia or North Korea might have provided their own wounded. Throughout their custody, both prisoners have been able to communicate with investigators, providing valuable intelligence about North Korean military operations. The interrogation process has yielded critical information about troop movements and battlefield conditions. One prisoner disclosed that North Korean forces had suffered significant losses during battle. These testimonies, coupled with physical evidence and documentation, provide irrefutable proof of North Korea's direct involvement in the conflict. The Pentagon confirms a substantial escalation in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, with approximately 8,000 North Korean troops now stationed in Russia's Kursk Oblast. This development marks a critical shift in the war's dynamics, as Moscow increasingly relies on foreign fighters to sustain its military operations. The arrival of North Korean forces has significantly altered the battlefield landscape in Kursk. According to reports from the Pentagon, these troops have undergone specialized training in various military operations, including artillery tactics, unmanned aerial vehicle operations, and basic infantry maneuvers. Additionally, they have been trained in trench-clearing procedures, equipping them with the necessary skills to navigate and engage in the challenging environments they now face on the front lines. Altogether, Ukrainian forces have maintained control of roughly half of the 984 square kilometers initially seized during their August offensive. Nonetheless, the situation remains fluid as Russian forces, bolstered by North Korean support, continue their counteroffensive operations. The deployment of North Korean troops marks a significant shift in global power dynamics, as the collaboration between Russia and North Korea offers mutual advantages for both parties. For Russia, the deployment provides much-needed relief from domestic pressure to increase its military ranks, while also contributing additional personnel to support frontline operations. This arrangement helps mitigate the political backlash that could arise from the growing number of Russian casualties, as the involvement of North Korean troops somewhat lessens the strain on Russian forces. For North Korea, the collaboration offers valuable combat experience for its military forces, exposing them to real-world operational scenarios. Additionally, the agreement grants North Korea access to Russian military technology, which could enhance its capabilities in various defense sectors. There is also the potential for the transfer of satellite and rocket technology, which could further bolster North Korea's technological advancements in the military and space domains. Yet, this partnership carries significant risks. Military analysts observe that North Korean forces have struggled to adapt to modern warfare, particularly in dealing with drone technology and contemporary battlefield tactics. The global community has responded with growing concern to this unprecedented military cooperation. The White House National Security Communications Advisor has confirmed the presence of at least 3,000 North Korean soldiers. Subsequently, South Korea took decisive diplomatic action by summoning the Russian ambassador, urging the immediate withdrawal of North Korean troops and sharing intelligence with NATO partners. The United States and South Korea have called upon China to exercise its influence over both Russia and North Korea to prevent further escalation. Hence, Beijing's role has become increasingly crucial, although it has maintained public silence on the matter. Ukrainian President Zelenskyy has expressed frustration with what he describes as the international community's zero response to this development. He argues that this weak reaction might encourage Putin to increase the North Korean contingent further. The U.S. Defense Secretary has emphasized that these North Korean soldiers would become legitimate military targets if they engaged in combat operations. Concurrently, the Pentagon continues to monitor the situation closely, providing regular updates on troop movements and battlefield developments. This military cooperation between Russia and North Korea carries deeper implications for global politics. Whether this alliance system challenges post-Cold War security arrangements or transforms regional conflicts into broader global confrontations remains to be seen. Thus, the international community faces mounting pressure to address this escalating situation effectively. Military intelligence reports reveal an unprecedented crisis among North Korean forces deployed to Russia's war effort, with alarming rates of desertion and combat ineffectiveness. Ukrainian forces report that 1/4 of the deployed Korean forces have become casualties. At this point, North Korean military units face severe morale problems, with documented cases of heavy drinking even during combat operations on New Year's Eve. Intelligence reports indicate that lower-ranking Russian commanders are concealing the true extent of casualties, providing false reports to their superiors. The Storm Corps, considered among North Korea's elite forces, has experienced devastating losses. In essence, 4 North Korean brigades became incapacitated within just 10 days of deployment. The White House confirmed that more than 1,000 North Korean soldiers were killed or injured in a single week of combat. North Korean troops are entering combat with a severe lack of essential protective gear and supplies. Military analysts have observed significant shortages in key areas, including night vision and thermal imaging devices, which are crucial for modern warfare. Additionally, the troops are lacking modern communication equipment, making coordination on the battlefield more challenging. Their protective armor is insufficient, leaving them vulnerable to attacks. And they also face shortages in basic survival supplies, such as food and medical necessities. Furthermore, the troops have limited drinking water reserves, compounding the difficulties they face in such harsh combat conditions. Given these points, the troops receive only basic Russian equipment, straight away highlighting the inadequate preparation for modern warfare. The Ukrainian military has observed North Korean soldiers attempting to advance on foot without armored vehicle support or artillery coverage. The North Korean military crisis can be traced back to significant training gaps that have become glaringly evident on the battlefield. Military experts have pinpointed several key deficiencies contributing to the struggles of North Korean forces. First and foremost, many of these soldiers have no prior combat experience in modern warfare, which leaves them unprepared for the complexities of current battle strategies. Additionally, there is a limited understanding of drone warfare tactics, an area that has become increasingly vital in contemporary combat. The troops also lack sufficient training in operations conducted in open terrain, which presents its own set of challenges when maneuvering and executing strategies. Moreover, there is minimal exposure to advanced weapon systems, leaving them underprepared to handle the sophisticated technologies employed by opposing forces. Finally, basic language barriers complicate battlefield communication, making coordination difficult and increasing the likelihood of errors in high-pressure situations. Analogous to their equipment problems, North Korean forces demonstrate outdated tactical approaches. Their training primarily focuses on mountainous terrain operations, leaving them unprepared for Ukraine's flat battlefields. The soldiers, mostly in their teens or early 20s, received their military education in North Korea's isolated environment. The crisis deepens as these troops face unfamiliar challenges. Their training since arriving in Russia has been described as basic, covering infantry tactics, drone operations, and trench warfare. In the light of modern combat requirements, this preparation proves insufficient. Ukrainian Special Operations Forces recovered a diary from a deceased North Korean soldier containing simplistic instructions for avoiding drones and artillery, tactics that proved fatally inadequate in actual combat. Storm Corps members, despite their elite status, display particular vulnerability to modern warfare elements. Their training focused primarily on sniper missions, urban warfare, and infiltrations through mountainous terrain. The pandemic further compromised their readiness, as Special Forces units missed regular training while rotating through border guard duties. The language barrier compounds these challenges significantly. North Korean troops receive only cursory instruction in Russian military terminology, learning basic phrases like open fire, artillery, and in position. This limited communication capability severely impacts their battlefield effectiveness and coordination with Russian forces. The situation reflects broader systemic issues within North Korea's military structure. These soldiers, often from impoverished backgrounds, receive promises of party membership and financial rewards for their service. However, their actual compensation remains uncertain, as most of their wages reportedly go directly to the North Korean regime. North Korean military involvement in Ukraine has exposed major weaknesses, with devastating casualties and operational failures. What was intended as a strategic alliance with Russia has turned into a humanitarian crisis, violating international laws. This situation is likely to reshape global perceptions of North Korea's military capabilities. What impact do you think this will have on North Korea's global standing? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching.